All right. Good evening, everybody. We'll give it another 1 or 2 minutes before I fully get started because this is evening and everybody is probably still getting done with their food. But I hope everybody's having a good time. Can anybody hear me? It's a good time to do a bit of a sound check. I see thumbs up, which is all good. Great. We'll get to a point where people will say stuff live. That would be nice as well. There we go. Okay, you get the. Hi, Shadia. Good evening. All right. I still mean to send out the questionnaire, whether the timing needs to change sometimes for you guys, but yeah, like we're a bit busy, as you guys can see. Got a lot of kids at the moment in the schools. Busy in a good way. And a lot of you've been tapping me on the shoulder when you see me in school, which is really nice. It's fun to hear. I really like the fact that when you see parents this way, you get to talk about the positive stuff. Like with the PTM, sometimes it's always about the negative. So that's all good. Speaking of the PTMs, for those that are with help, the questionnaire came through.
Hi, Mr. TJ.
Hello, good evening. So yeah, the questionnaire came through. It's a very nice split. So that's awesome. But the good news is there's not that many people, it seems, that want to join. So what we're going to do for the help parents is we're going to do a Q&A, a PTM session this next upcoming Thursday and Friday. So we're going to make 2 hours available in the morning. And then you guys can join us. Now, there was a few questions around, hey, if we're new, we just started last week, is PTM's not a little bit early? That is kind of true. So I would say that that's probably not necessary yet. Unless you have like something urgent to say and you want to have some questions there, then for sure, write in. That's no problem. So me and my team will have some time available. We'll put the actual questionnaire, the scheduler for that out tomorrow, and then you guys can meet us next week. And I saw a lot of signups for the camps. We're at 35 kids right now, which is great. For those who are asking, there is an option for your siblings, for the siblings of the kids to join. The prices are in there. So that is all possible. That should be fun. And yeah, if there's questions about the camp, please let me know. Okay, so we've got 19 people in the chat, so that's great. So I think it's a good time to get started. So I'll do a little introduction for Facebook because we got verified. So all the stuff is going live this week. So all the videos. So if you guys have nothing to do, we've got about 7 to 8 hours worth of videos to to watch for you guys over the weekend. So all right. So welcome. I'm TJ, the gifted and talented specialist. I've been on a mission in Malaysia, particularly to help gifted and talented become more happy, autonomous, and successful. And today we have 2 questions concerning strong-willed children. And strong-willed children, to me, are the fun ones to have. To a lot of parents and a lot of teachers, they're the ones that make things hard for them. And it's interesting to see that when you have kids that are so strong-willed, it's like we ask everybody, like, okay, we want you to be creative and we want you to stand up for yourself, but just not when I'm talking, right? And it's not really fair. And to be honest, when I work with these particular kind of students, I love it. Like the sassy, the creative thinkers, the ones that sort of throw spanners in the works all the time, keeps us on our toes. And once you get to that particular kind of mindset where it's, hey, it's fun to actually have that kind of creativity around you, and also a bit more of an understanding of what is happening, why this is happening with these kids, like what makes them behave in the way that they do, then it becomes easier to sort of let go. And for that, like, because I'll go a little bit into the questions that we're going to be answering today. Like, so they're related, right? So the first one is like how to recognize understimulation, because understimulation is kind of the trigger towards this particular strong-willed creative behavior. And we're going to be looking at the Betts and Neihart model a little bit more, because I think the Betts and Neihart model I've touched on a few times, but I've taken some time to translate it into English for you guys so that you can see what it really is. And then we'll pick one of the profiles out of that particular model, which is the one that is the strong-willed kids often, and talk about like what is the thing that we need to do to help them specifically. And in that same framework, I want to touch a little bit on Van Tassel-Baxa, because one of the questions that was asked is particularly like, okay, we have a school that doesn't really recognize the understimulation, and it doesn't seem to do much for us, and we really want to have some good references to help us with this. And basically, one of the challenges with this is I can give lots of references. Honestly, almost every gifted and talented bit of research or literature touches on this. So it's very wide. And I think when we get to situations where we maybe need to convince the school that some action is needed, it's very important that we take the entire approach in one shot. So I think I'm going to answer that in global terms. I'm going to give some useful references. But for any parents that are a bit unfortunate to have a school that can be a little bit tricky in this, because we have parents from different schools from all over Kuala Lumpur, it might be good to reach out to me one-on-one, and then we're going to have a look at like, okay, what is the particular thing that the school doesn't want to do? Because there's quite a few strategies, and Van Tassel-Baxa like talks about 4 specifically that are very key. And schools have options, like realistically, they have options in all 4 of those. Unfortunately, in Malaysia, you're lucky if you get one. And there's schools that say, oh, we don't do this, and we can convince them. We've had success convincing schools to implement gifted and talented provisions that aren't necessarily the peer classes that we do, because that's kind of the gold standard. But yeah, like I will need a little bit more information at that point. So that's the frame that we're going to be looking at today. So let's start with the first one. So that is Betts and Neihart. So Betts and Neihart, they're very interesting. A lot of Miss Neihart is actually sometimes in Singapore and does a little bit of work there, which is really great. I haven't had a chance to meet her here in Asia yet, but I've heard her speak. And Betts and Neihart have this particular model that I want to talk about. This is a really nice infographic. You will not really find this infographic in English, because the work that Betts and Neihart did basically has been in written form, in a little bit old-fashioned tables, all that kind of stuff, and it's very detailed and it's really good. So there's a few links that I will share with you afterwards where you can go, okay, hey, here's actually a lot of detail on the particular profiles, what needs they have in school, at home, socially, other kind of challenges that we can think of. And it's really deep. In the Netherlands, this has become a really popular model among gifted and talented educators. And it's sort of started to live a life on its own, where people have made these amazing infographics. There's lesson materials around all this, which we've been implementing with the kids that we work with. But it's all in Dutch. So I can do a Dutch course as well, if you guys want to. But basically, it's going to take me a bit of time. So I'm going to take a few of these lessons coming up, particularly if it's relevant to the questions, where I'll take some of these profiles and I'll go much more in depth with each one of these. So the basis of the model itself is that there is in this matrix 2 axes to look at. And the first axis is accomplishments, from poor accomplishments to good accomplishments. And then the other axis is social. And social can be over-adjusted and unadjusted. And over-adjusted means you're cropping everything up, you're listening to people, you're very agreeable. unfortunately, mostly girls sit in this category. And unadjusted are the ones that don't really want to fit in. They don't want to listen. They really stand up for themselves a bit too much sometimes. Now, obviously, socially being too agreeable is not good. We know if that agreeableness has a massive impact on your income, for example, right? So while we're in school, like a big driver of school is success in the future. And what is success? Well, one way to define it is how much money you make. um I feel that that feels always a little bit like too simple. Like to me, the way I define monetary success is that people appreciate that your time has a multiplier in terms of value that is worth something to them. But that means that they are actually an expert in anything. So as long as you can spend enough time on something, you can become an expert in something, and then you can become successful, which then people are willing to pay for. And I think once you start looking at it from that perspective, it becomes a lot more clear that money itself is not really the thing that you need to chase. And that's much more of a better growth mindset kind of approach. So yeah, so that's the two axes that we look on. Now, in that two axes, like you see three particular needs that we have. So we have the needs here: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And what is very interesting is that like that these three things actually have a massive impact on happiness as well. So I myself have done a lot of work in happiness research. And one of the things that in happiness, a lot of people think happy is just having fun, and that's really not the case at all. There's three factors that are really important in happiness. And the first one is of course well-being. And there's actually two types of well-being. So you have basically your bodily well-being, right? So your and then you have your mental well-being. So there's both of these that basically make up what is essentially the basis of a lot of psychology. And a lot of focus is on that, like, oh, as long as we're mentally okay, we're fine, and as long as we make sure that our bodies are fine, we're okay. But there's a missing component in that. Like a lot of people, and I've mentioned it in a lot of my other sessions before, that another important component is actually responsibility. And responsibility is interesting, because responsibility isn't responsibility until you accept it. And I've mentioned that before as well. But to reiterate, like what I mean with that is that if you are an employer and you have an employee and you hire them to do a particular job, and you write that in their job description, and you hire them for this, and you train them for this, and then you walk up to them and you say, actually, you have to do this thing, and it might be something really out of their normal job scope, something they've never done before, and they've not been trained in it. And if you just say as a boss, go do it, and basically the employee doesn't agree to it, if you then fire that person, if they don't do it well, by law, you are in the wrong as an employer. Right. So the concept of responsibility is very clearly one where somebody has to accept it. There has to be an agreement. And this is essentially what autonomy means. Right. So when I say happy, autonomous, successful, it's very interesting that the word autonomy is like a very big part of this model. And essentially autonomous is actually also in the top. Like if you look at autonomous, it is there. So the pinnacle of doing well, so doing exceptionally well in your accomplishments and being exactly in the middle socially, is autonomous. And autonomy, again, is also about being able to make a choice. And then the next one is competency. And the same thing here, like responsibility is only enjoyable if you feel like you have a positive impact on it. And in the Netherlands, the World Health Organization, for example, and UNICEF, they've been doing research into specifically the happiness in different countries, and particularly among kids. And the happiest kids in the world are kids in the Netherlands, 50 years running. So that is pretty interesting. So what's going on? And one of the things that we see in the Netherlands is that the biggest factor in that happiness is that the Dutch kids feel they have a lot of choice, and they have a lot of opportunities to have impact on that choice, particularly further in the future. So they're very interested in um, basically saying, okay, I'm learning something. It means something to me. I know where I'm going with this. And basically, that is what Betts and Neihart say in their model. This isn't just something nice to have. They say that this is a need. So all of this is a need. Sorry, need, right? A very important need, all of this. So it's not just like, okay, if we have it, it's great. No, if they don't have it, we see them not function. So any lack of this puts them lower on their accomplishments. And then we say, okay, researchers like Diener and Keller, that are like the ones that did the World Happiness Index, for example, they keep saying the same things. And none of these have really been writing in each other's journals. So it's very interesting to see that these bits of research are coming together and are really underlining what a lot of gifted and talented educators know to be true. And it's starting, like a lot of these puzzle pieces are starting to fall into place. So yeah, so that's important. The last one is relatedness. So a lot of gifted kids particularly feel excluded. Now, the reason they do is not because they're not capable of making bonds. It is mostly because the way that they develop puts them outside of social circles very often. So they develop in a way that is a little bit atypical. So most kids, when they develop, what happens is they sort of follow a single line up. Now this line, if you zoom in, is like more like a scribbly kind of bit, that's for sure. But gifted kids tend to develop a bit more like this. So they go very fast and then they plateau. And then they go very fast and then they plateau. And then they go very fast and then they plateau. And what tends to happen is that strategy eventually puts them lower. It's much like the the little turtle, the little turtle. I'll be drawing one like very poorly. There you go. And the hair, of course, right? So um, that is an interesting way to see, okay, how does that work? So what happens is like, because at a young age, so if this is age, right? Right, at a young age, they go very quick because it's funny how much time we spend with our young children teaching them anything. And then as they become a little bit more self-sufficient, we stop doing that. Like a lot of the time we say, okay, we basically go, okay, here's a daycare, right? Or here's a school, and we see them even less, right? Eventually, like what will happen is, of course, in school a lot of stuff happens, but our kids are more inclined in these early first 6 years to really look at our parents. And we know that like the development age from 0 to 6 is really crucial. So in this particular stages, you see that they're almost always above their peers in their development. And that makes it hard for them to connect, because how do I talk to somebody that can't read and I want to talk about this book? Right. So this is one option. But basically that learned behavior from that often makes them even more likely to sort of exclude themselves, and then it becomes really, really difficult for them. So they feel it's for a lot of gifted kids, it's a very lonely existence. I had one girl right now that has gone from school to school. Unfortunately, so sad, like that she can't find people to relate to. And right now, she's put up a defense mechanism so that she sort of goes, okay, well, if the world is not with me, I'm against the world in a way as well. And that basically has put her completely outside of that social group. So it can be pretty extreme. Particularly talking about what has happened in the last couple of weeks. Like, so when they talk about the kids that have had, really in Malaysia, for the ones that, of course, haven't been sleeping under a rock, know that there's been a lot of debate about like the behaviors in schools and bullying and behaviors, and like the girl that was that either was pushed or fell down fell down the stairs herself. And isn't here anymore. The knife incident, like these are pretty severe things. And then when you read the actual news articles, they always talk about, oh, these kids were doing quite well in school. And I have a very sneaking suspicion a lot of them, unfortunately, sit in this gifted and talented situation, right? So this relatedness is also really, really important. And the relatedness, of course, has a lot of impact on how they feel socially and if they're being heard. Now, let's go quickly through the different different profiles, and then we'll zone in on the one that is going to answer the question. So what we want is we want kids to be self-managing autonomous. So self-managing autonomous is somebody that basically goes, I know this, I don't know that, I want to know this, I need these resources, I'll make adjustments. If I want something, I'm willing to make some concessions, and I'm more than happy to work within the system, not against it. And when you get kids in that situation, they're amazing. Like honestly, we have a few children right now that I really think are in this particular range, and they are flying. Like it's basically all about getting the any kind of obstacle out of the way, and it's very fun, right? Because there will be people that sometimes will try to say, "Ah, yeah, but we shouldn't be doing that," and then like when they get really good at this, they'll steamroll them and say, "Oh yeah, so I'll just do this, I'll do that," and they'll be told like, "Oh, but that's too much work," and it's honestly the judge of whether something is too much work isn't always fair in those situations, and then these are the kids that often tend to start doing really well at almost everything. So like seeing kids to get to that stage is extremely fun, and we want them all there. But depending on how kids sort of and they start somewhere, most of them actually start there. Like so in kindergarten, preschool, year one, a lot of them are in that self-managing, because a very big common measure of is a like, or an indicator that we've got to give the kid is, did they teach themselves how to read? Did they teach themselves how to do math? And there'll be a lot of parents who go, yeah, I have no idea when they did that. Like they just one day started reading. And so they start there. And then unfortunately, things can go a little bit off the rails for different reasons. So the over adjusters, again, mostly girls, tend to start working, we develop a lot of closed mindset. They sort of say, okay, I'm working for the grade. Or so unfortunately, a lot of well-meant guidance from school and positive reinforcement on the results gets them there. And if you suspect you're a bit of a helicopter parent, or you're a little bit of, we call them curling parents in the Netherlands. So whoever doesn't know, curling is that Olympic sport with the pucks that go over the ice, and then you have like a big broom that gets like that polishes the ice to get somewhere. So curling parents basically polish the ice in front of their kids. And what we see is that parents that are like this, unfortunately, often get their kids more drifting more to the left. But it isn't always the case. Sometimes the kids start drifting to the right as well. To be honest, being a curling parent is not a good thing. It's tough. If you have like something that you struggle with that, please reach out to me, because I'm more than happy to help, like one-on-one, just to talk about what it is that you can do. Because most of the time when I speak with parents like this, they sort of know, but it comes from a place of fear most of the time, because they themselves have gone through this when they were young, and they don't want to see the distress on their kids. Right. So well-willing parents in this, but really you need some help in this situation, and don't be afraid to ask for it from me. I can either point you to other people if you don't like to talk to me more, but generally speaking, once you start working with that, because it's a really good strength to have that much love for your kids. But if you can point it in a bit more productive direction, it is actually, it will be more fun for you, for the kids, and it will be great around. So that's the adjusted successful. They're trying to please people around them. Unfortunately, if that gets a little bit too much, like if they socially overadjust too much, what starts happening is they start getting scared. So this is where a lot of curling parents push their kids towards that underground behavior. And going underground means I'm sick all the time. Like whenever there's a flu, they're the first one to become sick. They will have excuses why things didn't work. Like, oh, the cat 4 that I did wasn't as good because it was skipping, it crashed, or all that kind of stuff. And there'll be always something there, and they're very clever at it, generally speaking. And what is really interesting is that sometimes they don't even know that that's what they're doing. So they, at one point, have probably done it on purpose, but sometimes it becomes like second nature. Like when you do something often enough, it becomes something that you get yeah, something that becomes really yeah, like a habit. And of course, when that happens, things can go push into a lot of other directions, and this is where you start seeing them really not coming to school, and unfortunately, yeah, like you might never see them in school again. So this is not a good slide to go towards. So when we start seeing identifying kids as underground, we really start talking to parents about, okay, we need to be careful, we have to be mindful what we can do, what we say to bring them back up to there. Um, the other side, though, is where things get a little bit interesting. So the ones that don't want to adjust, so the ones that, I don't know, have a bit of a run-in where they're told, oh, be quiet, sit still, don't move so much, like give other people a turn to say something, or whenever like maybe they catch a teacher saying something wrong, rather than saying, oh, thank you for correcting me. So, yeah, I make mistakes sometimes. That's silly, but that's a really good observation. Well done. They go. Some teachers go, no, no, no. I'm right, and let's move on. And then that breaks a little bit of the trust with these kids. So I'm guessing you as parents have probably seen these kids that will like I know one story of a kid that was asked to write for English a story about what it would be like to live in New York as an immigrant, as a Chinese immigrant. And what he did is he said, he wrote down, I don't speak English well. And then he wrote an entire thing in Chinese. Like, I don't know, just as many words as he needed, all in Chinese. Um, and that's a funny joke, and it's and obviously that means the grades cannot be graded. But these kids do this on purpose. This is a really deliberate attempt to show that they are more capable than people who give them credit for. And it's basically that starts off relatively innocent, but if the way that you handle this you like is very combative, it gets worse and worse and worse. And this is what we call, that's where we find these strong-willed kids specifically. Now, this can happen pretty early on. Like, so another word for it is autodidact, which means somebody who likes to learn by themselves. Some of that is around this creative challenging, and it's related to how they socially see things. Um, some of it has to do with potential real strong fear of failure, right? So so there's two elements to this that I will go a little bit more deeper in. But before I do that, because this is the profile that we are basically going to look at today, I'll talk a bit about twice exceptional. So twice exceptional, in this particular model, the term can be a little bit tricky, because twice exceptional for a lot of people means I have ADHD and I'm gifted, or I'm dyslexic and I'm gifted. Like, so this is different kinds of twice exceptionalism. But twice exceptionalism can also be a learned deficiency. So if you get far enough behind in school and things don't work out, then you often also become twice exceptional. But why both of them are kind of here is because often the way that we treat the twice exceptional kids really makes them go, okay, I'm done with this. So we see them here a lot, although twice exceptionalism can sometimes move there too. But generally speaking, definitely their performance is not where it is. And you see the boy wearing a mask over here. And what it's basically showing is that like they have a lot of inner strength, but they're masking things. And masking is never a good thing. So in psychology, when we deal with people that are masking, we're talking about people not dealing with their emotions, but hiding them. And then how that then manifests, yes, well, that's very obviously a bit of a luck of the draw. Some of them like start unfortunately doing some stuff to themselves. Others take it out on other people. But the very common version in Europe is that these are the kids that basically, when it goes a bit further, they become at risk. And there is technically another another profile below this, which is the dropout. Right, so when they drop out of school. Now, that's not very common in Asia, dropping out of school. It does happen a little bit more in universities and colleges, for example, because then it's like, okay, I'm now 18 plus and you have nothing to say about it. I literally had a parent say that to me. It's like, yeah, she's sort of saying she's 18, but what do I do now, right? So So yeah, that's obviously a challenge that we don't want to have them here. So when you have a strong-willed kid that is a bit like this, actually asking the question, what can we do to help them? Like how to recognize this is very well. Technically, why does my child insist to do it their way? Like what do they want to do? That is basically first of all, not only the only a very good example of how to recognize this under stimulation, because what is happening is they're unengaged with class. That's why they're acting out. Their stuff is either too easy or it's gotten to the point that it's actually too hard. So they're now struggling with it, rather. So they need more help. But because they don't trust people around them anymore, rather than ask for help, they will just act out. And we had a boy literally today that basically followed that particular kind of profile, to the point where we took him aside for a second and we said, hey, like we observed that you were doing this particular project and you did something very interesting first, and you enjoyed that looked like a good thing, and then you did something very easy, and he came up with a very like clever way. Like what they had to do is the project they're working on is we're working on aerodynamics and we're using seeds. So we've got a bunch of peanuts and now they have to use origami to come up with a better way to fly seeds as long a distance as they can. So they have to look at like different seeds that have different aerodynamics. They have to try and create those shapes by folding the paper in the right kind of way, and they have to take into account the weight of the peanuts, and there's a lot of stuff involved with that, and they have to do some testing, see how far it goes. And he had a really good idea, but it was obvious that he was struggling with it. And then what he did is at one point, he said, well, I got a balloon, I'm just going to blow that up and I'm just going to like let it go, and then I'm good, which obviously has nothing to do with aerodynamics at that point, but it's kind of a creative, fun kind of way. It's kind of funny too, but obviously not in the scope of what we want to do with the lesson. And also, actually, for him, not necessarily a very, how would I say, like challenging way to solve that problem. Like it's like, okay, I've done that. Now what? I have nothing else to do. So you started to become a little bit anxious, walking around, like trying to struggle with that. And we observed it. So we took him aside and we said, hey, what's going on? Like you had these two things. Which one of the two like did you originally want to do? So well, yeah, I have this idea, and I had this, but I'm going with the balloon. And then we asked him, so well, why do you choose the easier one? And he said, well, I'm not sure. And then we asked him again, so well, okay, what do you want to get out of this? What is the thing that you want to learn? Because you have an option here where you take this easy thing, and easy for you means you're not moving forward at all. Actually, you move a little bit back. You had the thing that you were working on, which was slightly at the same level, or we have this thing that is really hard. Which one will make you better in the future? And he said, well, the hard one, of course. And then we asked him, well, why not? Why did you not want to do the hard one then? He said, well, I don't know how to do it. And then we got to the point where say, okay, he was basically a little bit scared to ask that question. The reason we can have that conversation with him is we've spent a lot of time building trust to the point where we can have that conversation without him getting super duper angry. And what we find is that a lot of these challenging creative types, that sometimes they're already in this situation where they go, no, this is not going to work. I've had some kids in year 7 and 8 in this particular mindset, and to get them out of it takes a while. Like for one of them, it took me almost 1.5 years to get to the point. And today, he relapsed a little. One of the boys relapsed a little bit in a particular situation where he said, okay, like he was just distracted. It was very obvious, and it had something to do with him not getting something he wanted 3D printed right. So the stuff he needed to do his project wasn't there, and it was fully his fault. He didn't send the link properly. He didn't follow up. He didn't check his email. So all of it was his fault. So the consequence was his. Yeah, but if I would have asked him 2 years ago, like, hey, how come you're procrastinating? He would have been angry, upset, and it would have taken his whole week out. And this time around, it's like, hey, it's interesting. Like, I see you're a bit distracted. What's going on? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like it's out. So, oh, have you realized that you sort of made your emails to the people for 3D printing a little bit too easy, and that you had an opportunity on Monday to sort it out, but you didn't, and now you don't have anything. Have you noticed that whenever that happens, you get bored, and then all this happens? Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. So he is there. And this is one of the most creative kids that we have, one of the highest Cat 4 scores we have as well. So his capability is really good, but he's not one of our best performing students grade-wise yet, because he's constantly stuck, and every time he wants to walk away from things, which really isn't happening anymore. So the real answer to how do we help this particular kid is build trust. I'm going to give some tips later on for at home to tell you guys what we can do with that. But yeah, what you need with this is what he needs autonomy. So he needs choice, much more than even some of the other profiles, because he's already feeling like he's a bit alone, like he doesn't want to engage socially, like he doesn't see the point. So he needs autonomy. And obviously, you can't really get competence unless you practice. But what happens a lot with these challenging creative kids is that because they're so creative, it's very hard for them to commit to something that they have to push through. So grit is the ability to say, this is my task. I'm committing to it. I'm not going to do anything else. And therefore, I'm going to do something a little bit boring, and I'm going to delay gratify this whole thing until it's done. Unfortunately, the challenging creative types struggle with this a lot, and they will constantly find new ways to fix it. So I could do this instead. And to us, from an outside perspective, it looks like kids that are just picking up things and doing something else. And actually, what is happening is that they've reached the point that the thing that they're doing is too hard, and therefore they need some help, but they're not willing to ask. So as a parent, if they're not willing to listen, what is going on is they're not trusting you enough. And why that is depends on quite a few things, either because of the things you said to them. And unfortunately, what you say to these kind of kids is really important, or how you've modeled stuff around them. So what are you doing? Like if you're also somebody that does new things, gives up quite quickly, like maybe some of us know that we are, and we have to work on that as a parent as well. Like, so what is really like, but again, I see this as an opportunity, because you have these gifted kids that are really struggling, and we have a lot of parents that are struggling too. But the opportunity is that they're basically forcing you to learn new things again. And the fact that we've got so many people coming in on these chats nowadays, is actually kind of encouraging, because it means that maybe you yourself can be a bit of a journey, like, oh, all right, what do I need to do to model things a little bit better? What is my language like? Do I use the yet language? Do I focus on the effort of things? Do I praise people when they're in the flow of things? And if you're not doing those things, that's the first thing that you can do, right? So this challenging creative behavior, which is obviously to a lot of outsiders looks like an unruly kid that doesn't want to listen, that needs just more firmness and things like that. Unfortunately, if you give them more firmness in the traditional way, these kids will push downwards. That's what we know. Like the moment you say, I'm going to take this out on them, you push them out more down, more down, more down, more down. And I know that like in some situations, like discipline seems like the easy option. It just, unfortunately for these gifted kids, it just doesn't work. And it's because we are not, how would you say, disciplined enough, right? So we as parents sometimes are not disciplined enough. And to be honest, like if you would to take a particular kind of pet, like dogs are a really good example of this. So dogs, if you just hit dogs, right, because they're not behaving, you will make a dog that eventually will bite you or bite others. So when we know that we treat dogs this way, they will become aggressive towards children, stuff like that. Right. Whereas if you're actually kind but firm with dogs and very consistent, they will listen to you really well, and they become actually very protective. So like so in a way, obviously kids are even more complex. So a dog won't understand what you say, kids do. But the dog understands very clearly when you do stuff with them. Right. So like I think for people that have pets themselves, like honestly, cats also respond to this, except they will not let you they will not let you be too angry to them too easily, as dogs do sometimes. But yeah, so this is the kind of consistency. If you want to be a good pet owner, you have to be consistent, you have to be firm, you cannot be too aggressive. They're still animals. But all those things apply to how you actually work with kids too, and then some. Because what is happening is, like, a lot of these kids are so intelligent that they can see that some of the general knowledge of what is right doesn't apply. They don't quite understand, like, why we have to do things. So these are the ones that are constantly challenging on, like, but why? But why is that? Like, that doesn't make sense. And they'll poke holes in this common knowledge quite a lot. Right. So yeah. So in this case, so this is the first one way. Why are they so strong-willed? Well, they're strong-willed because they're very creative, they're very quick thinkers, and they're strong-willed because they often have had enough of people telling them what to do. Right. So, and they don't trust people anymore. So that's one. There is another opportunity, not say opportunity, there's another way that they get into this, which is called autodidactism, and that's more rooted in perfectionism in a way. So some kids, and we see this a lot with twice exceptional kids that are on the spectrum, because they're very some kids on the spectrum struggle with matching empathy emotions towards the actions of others. So it's hard for them to understand what other people's intentions are. So they're very practical about things. And if you marry that with somebody that is a little bit fixed mindset, that wants to have the result well, then what you can end up with is somebody becomes a bit of a perfectionist. And there's a different this can be very early, like, so there's two kinds of learning strategies. Like, one is where you jump in, you try stuff, you break it, you pull it apart, you see how it works, and then you try to put it back together. It's a very hands-on kind of approach. It's an approach where you make a lot of mistakes and you go one way, go another way, you give up. Like it looks like mayhem. ADHD looks a bit like this, but it's a very common gifted trait as well. But the other one is where gifted kids sometimes observe and they look at things, and they look at it until they get it 100%, and they will not commit to something until they're confident they can do it. So it's actually kind of a risk avoidance kind of behavior. And we see this with riding bicycles, for example. You see a lot of gifted kids in this particular autodidactic kind of tendencies to say, okay, I'm going to observe people riding a bike. It's interesting. If you go faster, they seem to wobble less, and they lean in to make a turn and stuff. And basically, they sort of learn by observing. And then when they start doing it, they go from they never rode a bike before to it looks like they've ridden a bike all their life. The only now downside to that particular strategy is that if you then not stop paying attention on riding a bike, you'll fall over because you never really learned how to balance. Right? So these kids tend to, if they make a mistake, the mistake is massive. Right? Whereas, like, the ones that just try, they make mistakes all the time. The mistakes are tiny, and they build up a little bit of resistance to it. And both strategies have their advantages and disadvantages, but it's very common with these strong-willed kids to that they basically go, okay, I've learned how to do this, so therefore I'm going to do this myself. And these kids will push your hand away. They won't want to listen. When you tell them, oh, this is a consequence, they don't accept that. And sometimes it's because they've looked further than you, right? So you need to have that argument with them, and then eventually they run into it. But there is a way to deal with that, which is a lot easier, which is just let them run into the consequence of it. So you say, okay, these are the potential consequences. If it happens, you say, okay, I told you so. That hurts. Like, what do you want to do about it? Do you want to move on? Do you want to learn from it? And so on. But we'll get to another bit that is important. So it's like, how do we help these kids at home? Because the at-home support is really interesting. So the first one, and this is tough when you have a challenging creative kid at home, is you need to understand what's going on. Now, I've explained where the profile sits, where it comes from. It is really from being gifted, right? So it is a very common trait in gifted kids. So not all of it they have full control over. And if you get a little bit of peace with that, it allows you to become more calm when they do things you don't want to. And that's important because without this understanding and tolerance, you cannot build trust. So the earlier you start this, the better it is. So, and then it's better to try and do this in situations where it doesn't matter if things go a bit off the rails, like at home. So if you basically wait with this as long as you can until you are in a place where where it's very public and you have to deal with people that are looking at like your kid having a tantrum or doing naughty stuff to try and get some kind of attention, then yeah, then it's a little bit late because don't you have to realize that even the boy I was talking about in class just now, the reason he started acting out is because he's trying to distract from the fact that he's actually stuck. Right? And he doesn't want to break the idea that he's one of the smarter kids in class, because he is one of the smarter kids in class. He normally knows stuff a lot, and he is when he's in his good mood, the stuff he does is really amazing. Right? So he has this like, I'm normally the strongest in class. I'm yeah, but here all of a sudden there's other very bright kids in there, and well, if I give in that I don't know this, I look a little bit more silly, and I'm already like on a short leash because I'm the troublemaker in class. I'm the class clown. Like a lot of these kids are like the class clown, and all of that is either to get attention or to distract from things that they know that they can't do, or both at the same time, and often already subconscious. Right, so that's the real frustrating bit with this. That becomes subconscious behavior very, very, very quickly, and they don't realize it, and they get addicted to it. So that particular kind of cry for attention is fun because it's like, okay, they're in a situation that they feel out of control, and then by being a little bit of a class clown, they get people to laugh, and they take control of the situation. And that is tough. So the best way to deal with that is the positive discipline idea of starving that behavior of dopamine. So ignore it and tell them that we're going to ignore it. And that's tough because obviously if it's something dangerous, you do have to stop them. Right. But that's the kind of situation when that's why it's important you do this when they're young, because then you can physically restrain them or keep them safe. Right. So if they start throwing stuff, whatever, like you can move it to a place where throwing stuff doesn't happen. And then the bit or it still happens, but it doesn't hurt anything. And then what is really tough is then basically ignoring it. So you take them, you're completely silent. You take the kid that is in a tantrum like this, and you put them to a place that if they're in a dangerous situation, place that is safe. And then you just sit with them and you ignore them. And then the moment they calm down, because they're not getting the attention, you walk away as if nothing happens. And that's tough. It's like, that doesn't sound right. But you walk away as if nothing happened. And then if you do that often enough, eventually they'll learn like that throwing the tantrum doesn't get them what they want, which is your attention. It doesn't get them what they want, which is controlling your behavior. Then they'll try to do something else. And if that's a positive thing, if you then say, oh, that's nice, thank you, you'll see something magical happen. Now, this one is tough, which is one of the reasons in the next month, we're going to be doing this like during the holidays. We're going to try and organize this. We'll do like one-on-one, not one-on-one, we'll do these actual role plays with you guys face to face, because this is tough. And I can imagine that practicing that with your kids might be hard. But in order to do it, you need to have understanding and then tolerance. And tolerance is something you have to practice, because it's an emotion. Depending on what is happening, you have to learn how to control it yourself. So look at it as something that allows you to maybe learn how to get better at this too. But yeah, and you probably need some help with this. So this might be a good question for you in the chat. Okay, the next step is modeling things. So what do we need to do? We need to model. And when I talk about modeling, you need to basically show them that there's behavior that is different and positive that gets the same kind of attention. And the great news about this is, like, particularly if you have siblings in the house, you can actually use siblings for this, right? So you reward good behavior, but it's also for you. And it's about like using that creativity in a positive way. So how can you make the things that are creative? Because obviously the stuff that they do to come up with some solutions are great. And it's really good. And it's really rare to find creative people. Right. So don't just look at this as like, oh man, like I wish there would be like I could control them 100%. Like it's a lot harder actually to get kids that are that are not very creative and can't find solutions, to get them to do that. That is actually a lot harder. So having this raw talent to do that is a positive thing. It just comes with a little bit of baggage, and as long as you're aware of that, then it's okay. So modeling is also particularly for the challenging creative kids that seem to be a bit overstimulated, is doing things that calms down as well. So take time to read for yourself and be very firm about that. So no, this is time for me to calm down. If you want to do some learn how to meditate, it's really good, because then they'll ask, "Can I do the same? Can I do the same?" And I do the 5 a.m. club thing a lot, and my boys are asking, "Can I join you?" And that like modeling is so important. So that's the next step. Like walk the walk, and walk the talk. So the last one is the fun one. So family projects. They're very creative. They want to do things. They want to solve problems. So do family projects. It doesn't cost much nowadays to get like a 3D printer, for example. Like amazing stuff. You can do amazing things with this. It's super easy to learn. Learning it together with a challenging creative kid is amazing. They can, yeah, they really like, depending on whether that's what they like, you go in that. Doing artwork together, that's a good one too. It's like, okay, you want your kids to play music? Well, get your own instrument, play it together. There's lots of things that you can do that basically, like you're saying, oh, they can practice for half an hour. Oh, then you can probably do the same thing too, right? So then you're modeling and you're doing something together. Maybe you write a piece of music, and if you need more information on that, there's the internet. That you can basically you could subscribe, for example, to Mark Roberts' materials, and you'll get like something every week that's a little bit of STEM related stuff, and you build that. Arduino is amazing. Like if you take Arduino and you start making circuits and so forth, if you combine it with a 3D printer, it's awesome, right? So Arduino is super cheap. You're looking at like 50 ringgit for a kit, and it will last you for 2 months, and you don't need to go to a center to get it taught. You can do that together in like 10-minute lessons, basically, that you can do together. If you have a laptop and you have an Arduino, you could do something together and you're good to go. So family projects is a real good opportunity to create situations where they are going from, oh, this is something new, this is something hard, and opportunities for you to model, oh, this is too difficult for me. That's okay, let's figure it out. Oh, this didn't work. What can we do? Right. So this is like, if you're struggling with modeling, family projects are an amazing way to make that work. I think we have a little bit of time for some other questions today. So if you have, please type some in chat. I'll give you a small, again, overview where we were. So we wanted to look at understimulation. How do we recognize it? And why are my kids so strong-willed? So to summarize that, the understimulation is often recognized by the behaviors that the kids show, which is in Betts and Neihart's model, either by over-adjusting or under-adjusting. So the actual unadjusted behavior could also be walking out of the class, whatever. But there's lots of things. There's a whole list, a plethora of things that could be. It could be just deciding not to listen, not to do things. So that's all there. And then we talked a bit about the way that the kids develop compared to regular kids, and why the tortoise and hare situation happens there. And then finally, like understanding why these kids act the way they do. You need understanding tolerance so that you can calm down, which is a type of modeling behavior. And then you need to model making mistakes or coming up with solutions, and family projects. Okay, so the question that I have, can I talk about managing over-adjusted behavior? I can give you a few tips, because like honestly, I would love to say, like, I want to take this one and make that like next week Q&A, because like I can speak 1 hour about this particular profile as well. But one of the first things is you also need to model, but you need to model making mistakes on purpose. Like a lot of over-adjusted behavior sits in there. They're being worried that they're going to fail. They're basically, when they're adjusted successful, they're doing things for people. and they're cropping all their frustrations inside. When they go underground, it's when that's not no longer good enough. So it's not working the way they want. And rather than fight it, which the right side does, they run away from it. So basically, it's a fear response. You can also refer back, I think, to the second lesson that we had. It's going to be on our YouTube channel, where we talk a lot about how you use exposure therapy to deal with fear. A lot of the kids in these undergrounds are also perfectionists. There's a lot of perfectionists in this region here. But yeah, you model mistakes. You basically only talk about the work that they put in, not about the results, because the results is what they're worried about. And it's about mindset shift on using language that is again not about like, oh, you're so smart or anything else. It's all growth mindset kind of stuff. I hope that answers your question a little bit, Navoni. Okay. I think there was yeah, so I will take it into next week. I'll go very much into detail about this one. Another question that I did have, uh yes, I will share the YouTube link. They are uploading. Let me see, how important is it to expose kids to different countries, cultures at an early age? Well, I'm the poster boy of somebody living in other countries, to be honest. It depends a little bit, like what kind of exposure, but like any exposure, this is good. Like other views, points of views are amazing. I think there's a distinct difference to being a tourist somewhere and being a living somewhere. Those things are different. So I think both are equally important. Going as a tourist is a good experience. There's lots of opportunities to learn, like amazing ways to just take them out of comfort zones of things when it comes to eating food that they don't know. All those things are great. Right? So I can, of course, but if you don't have um, the luxury of time or money to do it as often as you can do it in other ways. Watch other movies, like go to places where people speak different languages. You'll be surprised what you can do if you look around, and you'll find that in Malaysia we're kind of lucky that like we have three wonderful cultures that are very strong to their roots, and actually a lot of them will love enjoying talking in their native tongues, right? So you don't always have to look outside of a country. And yeah, so to be honest, I've been living outside of the Netherlands longer now than I've been in it. So yeah, like I can advocate for that very clearly. I think I'll chance time for one more quick question, unless that's all. I think I saw one question that was asked. Can we do replacement classes? And the answer to that is yes. So very important with us, the way that our curriculum works is not this happens now. Like a lot of your kids come and see me for 5-10 minutes, even though the classes aren't happening, and that is really important, because I think when we said to them, oh, you can only be helped this time, like we close a lot of doors, particularly with these challenging creative kids, right? So them coming in is like, okay, I need help with this. This teacher is driving me off the wall. I need to vent. That's important, right? So basically, we do replacement classes either in our centers. So yeah, basically, send me a quick message, and I'm more than happy to help. My team basically accommodates that too. So we've got a lot of kids that have been coming to our Saturday classes, just sneak a lesson in there to replace one that they missed. So just let us know if that goes okay. And I think that's it for tonight. Thank you all for coming. That was a lot of fun. I hope you learned something. And if you have any more questions, like in the chats that we have, just there will definitely be more Q&A stuff coming up every week. So feel free to ask, and I'll love to see you guys in the schools. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
All right, thank you.